Everything we do to protect ourselves from chaos is actually destroying us. The pursuit of safety, of stability, of predictability, it creates systems, social, financial, medical, that are maximally, catastrophically fragile.
And that is an incredibly uncompromising claim from Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He argues that the opposite of fragile isn't just something robust, something that can withstand a shock.
No.
It's something that actively gains from disorder, from volatility and uncertainty.
And that right there is anti-fragility. It's this concept that describes systems or decisions that don't just survive when things go wrong. They actually get better from the chaos. To really grasp it, we have to start with the three states, what Taleb calls his mythological triad.
Okay, so first you have the fragile, and this is symbolized by Damocles. You know the story. He's got a sword hanging over his head by a single horsehair.
Right.
He absolutely hates volatility because any small shock could mean disaster. It's all downside risk.
Then you've got the robust. This is the phoenix. It can handle volatility, you burn it to the ground, and it just rises from the ashes, completely unchanged.
Exactly. It withstands the shock, but it doesn't improve. It's the same bird it was before.
But antifragile, that's the Hydra.
That's the Hydra. You cut off one of its heads, and two grow back in its place. Harm, stress, volatility, that's what it needs. It triggers this overreaction and overcompensation that makes it fundamentally stronger. It literally uses disorder as fuel.
Okay, but let me challenge that for a second. If we have perfectly good words like robust or resilient, why invent a new, slightly clunky word? Is robustness truly not good enough? I mean, it sounds a bit like academic semantics, but I think that question is actually central to his whole argument.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. Taleb argues there's this massive blind spot in our language because we all confuse robustness with anti-fragility. He claims that perfect robustness is, it's an unattainable fantasy.
So time eventually breaks everything.
Time, or you could call it entropy, eventually breaks everything with even the tiniest vulnerability.
So if something is merely robust, it's just postponing failure.
Precisely. Robust systems are just trying to hold the line. Anti-fragile systems, like you see in nature and biological systems, they're aggressive. They actively seek out and use random events to get better, to regenerate. That's the only true long-term survival strategy.
That distinction gaining versus just surviving, that's the core of this deep dive. This is Nonfiction Insights, and today we're unpacking Nassim Nicholas Taleb's Antifragile, things that gain from disorder. We're here to give you the mental toolkit from this profound and often controversial book.
All right, let's get into it with maybe the most unsettling metaphor in the whole book. The turkey problem.
Yeah, this is the perfect illustration of what he calls Black Swan fragility. So you're a turkey. You're fed for 1,000 days by a farmer.
Every single morning.
Every morning. So your statistical confidence that this farmer loves you and is going to keep feeding you is going up and up and up.
And then Thanksgiving arrives.
Right. And the turkey makes this fatal mistake of mistaking the absence of evidence of harm for evidence of absence of harm.
The system looks perfectly stable, perfectly safe, right up until the moment of catastrophic failure. Fragile systems hide their defects until the absolute worst moment.
So we have to assume the turkey's point of view is just flawed. Its whole understanding of the world is based on the idea that the future will look like the past. And that's the danger we face when we try to eliminate all the little ups and downs. We become blind.
And not being a turkey means understanding that systems, biological, social, all of them, they need stress to improve. This leads us right to the concept of hormesis in biology.
Hormesis is fascinating. It's this idea that small doses of something that would normally be harmful are actually beneficial.
Because they trigger an overreaction.
It's exactly an overreaction that makes the whole organism better. We see this with King Mithridates, who supposedly consumed small doses of poison over time to build up his immunity.
Right, they call it mithridatization. Your bones, your muscles, your immune system, they all grow from acute stress, like lifting something heavy or fighting off a virus, not from being constantly protected or using those, cushy gym machines that take all the stabilizing work away from your body.
And it's not just physical. Taleb points out this same need for overcompensation shows up in our work. He says if you want something complex done urgently, give it to the busiest person you know.
Why? Because they're already in that overshooting mode. They're constantly juggling their workload, so they'll just overcompensate and get it done. We thrive on a little bit of pushback.
But this logic is where Taleb launches his main critique of modern society. If stress is so necessary for growth, what happens when expert planners try to get rid of all of it?
This brings us to what he calls the fragilista, and the concept of harm caused by intervention.
Okay, before we jump into policy, we need to clarify that term. You mentioned something earlier, iatrogenics. What exactly is that?
Iatrogenics is simply harm caused by the healer. It's the negative side effect you get from a treatment or an intervention. Taleb's fragilista is the person, a doctor, an economist, a policy planner, who over-intervenes in a complex system they don't fully understand.
And their interventions are dangerous because the benefits are usually small and obvious.
Small, linear, visible, yes.
But the side effects are potentially catastrophic, hidden, and nonlinear.
Exactly. They mistake a complex system, like the economy or the human body, for like a washing machine that just needs constant fixing. The fragilista uses flawed models that make the banking system more fragile until the whole thing collapses and needs a bailout.
That sounds incredibly harsh. I mean, maybe even a little paranoid. Is he saying that all centralized policy, especially in medicine or finance, is harmful? Don't we need some regulation to prevent total chaos? Don't people need doctors?
No, he's not arguing against all science or all planning. He's arguing against meddling in complex systems when you have no idea what the second or third order effects are going to be. The fragilista gets blinded by their own complicated theories, and they miss the basic rules of life.
Which is that simple systems are often better because they let small stressors burn off energy.
Right, so the goal isn't chaos. It's about having distributed stressors to prevent the big, sudden catastrophes.
Okay, so what does that look like in the real world?
Well, Taleb shows us two graphs. One represents a centralized system, a big national economy, a huge bank. The line is flat, stable, looks perfectly predictable for years. And then suddenly a vertical drop, a black swan. All the pressure was building up inside.
And the other system?
The decentralized one, a city-state, a local market. The graph is noisy, it's fluctuating all the time. There's constant small-scale failure happening. But that volatility, that noise, is what makes the overall system stable and healthy. The stress is distributed.
So that distributed randomness creates a kind of macro stability. And the big centralized states, by trying to choke off all that messy natural volatility, they're actually making themselves more fragile.
They're forcing the system into what he calls a Procrustean bed.
That's a classic Taleb reference. Procrustes was a fetcher in Greek myth who would force travelers to fit his bed. If you were too tall, he'd cut off your legs. Too short, he'd stretch you out.
It's the perfect analogy for top-down planning. The planner tries to fit a messy, complex reality into their clean, simple model. But that messiness is often what kept it stable in the first place.
And the crucial takeaway here is mathematical. Fragility is nonlinear.
In math terms, it's concavity. Large deviations are disproportionately harmful. If you lose a little money, it doesn't hurt much. If you lose a lot, it can destroy you completely. To be anti-fragile, you need the opposite: positive asymmetry or convexity.
More to gain than you have to lose.
Exactly. Which brings us to the most practical tool Taleb gives us: the barbell strategy.
Okay, let's unpack the barbell, because this is where we get to go from philosophy to action. It's a bimodal approach, right? You avoid the dangerous middle.
You avoid the middle at all costs. The moderate middle is where you have, a modest, limited upside, but you're still exposed to that catastrophic hidden risk. The barbell strategy is simple. You maximize your exposure to both extreme safety and extreme risk.
So, simply put, you put maybe 90% of your resources, your money, your time into something maximally safe. Low-risk ventures. You basically eliminate your fragility.
And that last 10%, and this is the key part, goes into highly speculative, high-risk, high-upside ventures. The goal is to clip your downside. You can only lose that 10%, but you have unlimited upside potential. This structure is called optionality.
Optionality. It's the right, but not the obligation to act. It means you don't have to be right very often. If you make 10 speculative bets, 9 can fail spectacularly, but the one that hits pays for everything and then some.
So let's apply that to a career. Taleb suggests you should avoid the stable corporate job track. He calls this the tantalized class.
Tantalized? Why that word?
Because you have just enough comfort and security that you never take the risks to be truly independent. But you're actually incredibly fragile. If the company restructures, you're gone.
Yeah.
The future depends on a complex system you don't control.
So instead, you adopt a barbell. For your 90%, you find a safe, maybe even boring, low intellectual demand job. A sinecure.
Right, a sinecure, something that gives you a stable income without a lot of stress. Think a civil servant, a lens maker like Spinoza. You are protected.
And the 10%. That's your time and mental energy for the speculative, uncompromising creative work. Writing a book, starting a risky venture. The goal isn't just a side hustle, it's true independence. It's about getting what he calls FU money.
And we see this in health, too. The barbell replaces the idea of the moderate, balanced daily routine.
Which can be a chronic low-grade stressor.
Instead, you combine occasional severe stressors like fasting or intense heavy exercise with total recovery. It's that acute shock that triggers the anti-fragile response and makes you stronger, way more than just moderate, predictable input. And this introduces another key principle, via negativa.
The way of subtraction, what does that mean here?
It means removing harmful things before you start adding new ones. So in health, before you start adding superfoods or supplements, you apply via negativa. Stop consuming junk, stop drinking sugary juices, stop sitting all day. Negative knowledge, knowing what's harmful, is more reliable than positive knowledge.
That brings up a question. What about finance or business? Is everything a barbell? What if you're not a writer or a lens maker?
The core idea applies everywhere because it's about managing asymmetry and optionality, and it always comes back to via negativa. First rule, avoid debt. Debt is the ultimate form of fragility. It removes all your optionality and gives you unlimited downside.
And why avoid large companies?
Because their mortality rate is way higher than you'd think. They're the turkeys of the corporate world, hiding their fragility under layers of bureaucracy, just waiting for a black swan.
It seems like that negative knowledge, what's wrong, what doesn't work, is just so much more robust to error than positive knowledge.
Absolutely. Think about it like this. One small observation can disprove a whole theory. So disconfirmation is more rigorous. Simple, time-tested rules, what Taleb calls heuristics, often work better than complicated models built by fragilistas.
Give me a quick example of a heuristic like that.
A really simple one. Avoid consuming liquids that are less than 1,000 years old. Water, wine, coffee. They've been tested by generations. Avoiding new, complicated chemical drinks is a simple via negativa rule that works.
That really brings it home. Okay, let's put this back on the listener. Imagine you are designing a video game character. Fragile means one hit kills you. That's Damocles. Robust means hits don't hurt you. That's the Phoenix. But anti-fragile means every hit makes you stronger. You're the Hydra. Which one do you want to be?
And that's exactly why robust isn't enough. It doesn't grow. It just endures.
To wrap this all up, we have to touch on the ethical component that underlies all of this, the agency problem.
Yes. This is the problem where fragility is often hidden by people who get all the upside while transferring the downside to everyone else. The fragilistas, the bureaucrats, the executives with limited liability.
They profit from the stability, they get bonuses for the small, visible gains, but when the black swan hits, they're fine. They keep their upside and transfer the massive downside to the taxpayer, to the public, to the system they were supposed to be protecting.
The health of a society depends on heroes and entrepreneurs who take risks. But for a system to be truly anti-fragile, the decision makers have to have skin in the game.
Meaning the person making the decision has to share in the consequences of failure. They can't just collect the benefits and pass off the costs.
It's the ultimate test, is what Hammurabi's code recognized thousands of years ago. If a builder builds a house that collapses and kills the owner, the builder was put to death. That forces radical responsibility.
That's a pretty tough benchmark for modern life.
It is, but it's the only way to ensure people don't create fragility for others. The central insight here is clear. The opposite of fragile is not robust, it's anti-fragile. You should be trying to build a life that gains from disorder, not just tolerates it.
Look for ways to adopt that barbell. Maximize safety where it counts, with your health, with avoiding debt, so you can be strategically wild in areas that offer you that unlimited upside.
If you want more deep dives into contrarian ideas that reshape how you view risk and knowledge, subscribe to the channel.
This has been Nonfiction Insights.